How to make a six-sided cube puzzle using recycled Christmas cards.
Let's see what's cooking. Let's get the facts. Let's see what's cooking. It's time for Yo-Yo Max 12.
Hello everyone. First thing you're going to do is start off with some wooden cubes. You may be able to find these at your local craft store already made. In my case, my husband had some extra pieces of wood in the garage he wasn't using, so I asked him to cut these into a 4x3 shaped cube puzzle from me. Each cube is 4 centimeters by 4 centimeters. I chose that size because that's the size of the Christmas cards that I happen to have. Now I painted mine all white because I thought that maybe some of the wood would be showing when the puzzle was being put together. As it turns out, the cards did a really good job of covering the wood, so you can skip this step if you want. Now, if you want to do a two-sided puzzle instead of a six-sided puzzle, then I would probably recommend that you paint the sides that don't have card on them. Now, this is just regular acrylic poster paint. It's washable, non-toxic, that kind of a thing. It dries fairly quickly. So what I did is I just painted 4 sides, let it dry, and I did the other 2. And this is a step that children could certainly help you out with. Now, I'm curious to know if any of you had one of these six-sided wooden puzzles when you were a kid. I had one that had different farm scenes on each side. And I tell you, it was one of my favorite puzzles that I had when I was just little. Now, if you're going to make these wooden pieces yourself, obviously take the time to sand the edges so you don't have splinters. I did mention that, but I think that should be obvious. Okay, now it's time to take your card and to cut it up into pieces. Now, I chose cards that I thought children would find appealing. It's better to use simple designs if this is going to be for very small children. And it's better if you have cards that have vastly different colors schemes to them, so one that's mostly blue, one that's mostly red, that kind of a thing. It'll make it easier for them to solve. However, if you want it to be a little bit more challenging, you can pick cards that are very similar in color. Might be a bit of more of a challenge for maybe some older ones. Okay, now we have to trim our card to fit the puzzle. For my particular case, the card needs to be 12 centimeters by 16 centimeters. Now this particular card I'm using just happened to be exactly 12 centimeters wide on its shortest side. So I made a line at 4, and then I made a line at 8, and then the final edge was 12. So I ended up with 3 strips. Now for the other direction, the long direction, the 16 centimeter one, this card was actually slightly larger. It was about 17 centimeters. I need to cut off about 1 centimeter. Now you can cut it off of one edge. In this case, I wanted to look balanced, so I cut a little bit off of each edge. So I eyeballed about 1/2 centimeter on one side, and then I measured from that line to 16. So you're going to make a little line at 4, one at 8, one at 12, and one at 16, and so on. So what you're going to end up with is a grid pattern of 4 by 3 squares on the back of your card. Now, it's worth it in the long run to try to be as precise as you can with this part of it, because it's just going to make it easier to fit on your cubes after you're done. All right, so there's the finished card. Now I'm just going to cut off those little extra pieces. Just trim those off. And when you turn it over, you'll see that your card is kind of even on both sides. Some cards you may want to just trim it on one side. Some of them you may want to trim on both if you have to. And then you're going to cut each individual little square. And you get a little puzzle assembling practice here while you're at it. And then you're just going to grab them when it's all done. And you're going to pick them up and just stack them in order, say from top right to bottom, from top left to bottom right. Just put them in order somehow. And you have a little stack for each card. Now, to glue your cards on, I'm just using Mod Podge, which is kind of like a glue and a sealer that you use for paper. You can use plain old white craft glue for this. I don't think I would use hot glue because hot glue is kind of bumpy. And what you need is a glue that covers the entire surface of the cube, because you want that card to stick firmly and you don't want the edges to curl up. So take the time to put the glue on so that you cover the whole cube, and then take some time to press down on the card to make sure that it's nicely adhered to the cube. And make sure it's aligned properly, of course. Now when you're done, you may have some cards that you didn't cut perfectly. So you may have to trim off any little excess that's sticking out past the cube. You want it to be as perfectly flush to the cube edge as possible. And when you're done, just turn each cube so that you get a fresh puzzle face, and then you're going to glue on the next card. Now when you're all done, if you'd like, you can take some of the Mod Podge or some kind of paper sealer and just go over top of all the pieces again. It'll give it a kind of a nice shiny finish, and it'll also make them maybe a little more durable, and it'll seal those edges really nice so that the cards don't peel up on you. I find if you put several coats of this, you get a really nice glossy finish, and it really makes it feel like one cube, not like a bunch of cubes with paper stuck on them, because the edges are nicely sealed. Just make sure, obviously, you're going to let it dry in between each side. And then here's me trying to solve one of the puzzle sides. Now, obviously, these are simple because there's only 12 pieces for each puzzle. But keep in mind that there are no real edges to some of these. So you can't really just do the edge pieces and then fill in the middle. Do you know what I mean? Because there's really not a lot of clues there. So as you can see, depending on which card you use, you can make this a little bit more challenging or super simple depending on the age group. And you know what? This would be a fun little activity for parents to do with kids. Now when you're all done, you can take your finished cube puzzle and you can put it into a decorative box or a cookie tin or something like that to store it in and to give it as a gift. Here are some photos of each of the individual sides of the puzzle that I made. Now, what you can do if you want, before you cut these up, take photos of each of the cards. You can use some kind of photo editing software to put them all together to make like a collage. Print it out on a piece of paper and you can glue it to the back of your box so that people have a reference to what each picture is, so they can use that to help them solve their puzzle if you want. Now, I didn't take photos of my cards before I cut them up, but I did take a picture of each puzzle face and I put them on a piece of paper. I'm going to throw that in the box, and it's in a cute little decorative tin. And it would make a really cute little activity for Christmas time for small ones. Don't throw out those Christmas cards that you've been accumulating over the years. You can transform them or recycle them into some great crafts. Check out the videos on your screen for some ideas, or see the link in the description box for a playlist. Thanks for watching.